your foxy writer, Brandy Ackerley, and today we'll be reading the next chapter in my novel, Hunter's Gambit. As always, if you like what I'm doing here, please like the video and subscribe. If you feel so inclined, please leave a comment or question in the area below too, or you can even email me at inkedfoxpress@gmail.com if you want your comment/question to be anonymous. I'll leave that email address in the description below. Oh, okay, I'm stupidly excited and nervous today. I had a dentist appointment on Monday, and now WWC is literally only 2 days away. My first panel is at 3 p.m., talking about dealing with imposter syndrome. I'm trying to change my sleep schedule over, and I'm still planning on being on Twitch tonight. I'll just need to make sure that I actually stop on time so I can get some decent sleep tonight. Oh, I'm so excited, though. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Oh, the nerves will hit me full force tomorrow night, almost certainly. Anyways, I will let you know. Today, we'll be continuing with Chapter 15 of my novel. In the last chapter, Kazunoha and Richard discussed their options to continue their trip, and Richard pushed Kazunoha on a few tough points, and they also almost took that step into Richard's bed. Stopping only when Kazunoha realized that falling into bed with him would mean that she would never get out of Hidan. And now, on with the story. Okay, just let me bring up the book here, and that'll be just about perfect. Her hand lay on the inside gate latch, stinging from the light touch on her cuts, but she couldn't bring herself to open it. The house was well built, stone with a well-kept roof. It was the 4th largest home in the village. His mother had been given it when she'd become one of Hidan's healers. Deckard had taken it over from her when she'd died. It hadn't changed since she was 5. It wasn't painted, the mortar old and crumbling. Once a week the woodcutters refilled the wood along the west wall, so it was always well stocked, even in winter, so Deckard could bring in bundles to dry before burning. A small cellar was carved out of the dirt, and among other things it had a furnace in it that could be used to heat the entire house, though he preferred to use the stove in the kitchen to do it if no one was ill. She took a deep breath. There was something about the property that just smelled right. A clean scent that she didn't associate with anything else in the city. She moved near the door and heard pots banging together. She hesitated and then growled. She wasn't going to get anything done like this, and she was embarrassing herself. She opened the gate and strode up the walkway to knock on the door. She regretted it as she heard a feminine voice. She'd forgotten about the woman he'd been with a few weeks ago at her sister's majority celebration. "I'll get it, Deckard." The woman that opened the door was dark-skinned, with curly brown hair and warm eyes. Immediately, the pleasant smile on the woman's face dimmed. She looked older when she wasn't smiling, maybe Deckard's age? Kazunoha reached for the girl's name so as to not embarrass herself further. It was a traveler's name. Timi? No, Tieni, that was it. The silly girl from the koi. The one Deckard hit with the door? The woman asked, clearly not expecting an answer. Kazunoha ground her teeth. "My name is Kazunoha. You are Tieni from the Compania." They were traveling folk, unable to settle down in any city. Thieves more often than not, as well as entertainers. Her father had always said that most companies were also bandits, when the towns didn't give them enough money for their performances. The woman smiled widely. "I'm not surprised that you've heard of me. I came into town with a Compania, and I still perform in the koi on occasion. What's your favorite song, girl? Perhaps I'll give you a show if you have coin." Kazunoha smiled as toothily as possible, imagining that she was a cat showing its fangs. "I'm not a fan of windbags," gasping for breath as they tried to keep an audience entertained. Tieni sucked in a breath. Her dark eyes looked closer to a fiery orange as she folded her arms over her chest. "Well then, You have no business here at all. Oh, but I do. Kazunoha caught the door as Tieni tried to close it. If I wanted to see you, I'd frequent the koi. Since I'm at the healers... Tieni raised an eyebrow, and then smoothed down her shirt. A flimsy bright thing that flowed over her loosely slipped off one shoulder. That shoulder was thickly muscled. More thickly muscled than most non-hunters. He's currently engaged, unless you're injured, Kit Kit. My name is Kazunoha, not... Just behind Tieni, Kazunoha saw Deckard, wearing nothing but a pair of pants, walking out of the bedroom. He pulled on a bleached shirt over a leanly muscled chest. He tied his hair back today, and it shone like wheat, hanging just long enough to touch his shoulders. The blue of his eyes caught the light, and she stepped back. Tieni, am I needed? Kazunoha saw Tieni smile at her. Kazunoha realized that she'd moved back, lost ground. She fought an instinct to run. She wouldn't run from Deckard. She owed him that much. Technically, she owed him happiness as well, but she wouldn't give her blessing with Tieni. The woman seemed like a grasping worm. Deckard deserved better. He saw her and stopped, his expression hardening. Kazunoha? What are you doing here? She raised her hands. Nothing that I... She didn't even finish before he'd moved forward to grab her hand, the one that Richard had wrapped. How did you get hurt? Get in here! What were you doing? Tieni's eyes flashed, but she moved aside before Deckard pushed her. Kazunoha had to stop herself from grinning. True, Deckard was only doing it because she'd been hurt, but the alacrity with which he drew her into the house made her happy. As he sat her down, Kazunoha saw that Tieni was grimacing, her arms folded over her chest again. Deckard, I'm going out. Don't forget about our dinner tonight. She leaned in for a kiss. Then she whispered loud enough that Kazunoha could hear her. We can finish this later. Deckard kissed her back. Thank you, Tieni. Deckard started unwrapping her hand, but Kazunoha watched Tieni saunter out as if she owned the place. I don't understand what you see in that girl. She isn't a girl. She's a woman. The comparison, even if he would argue that it wasn't one, rankled. Kazunoha stood. If this was a bad idea, I'll be fine. Deckard grabbed her hand, and she hissed as his finger clamped down on her knuckles. Sit down, Kazunoha. You're hurt. I'm not going to let you just go like this. She sat back down, looking away. It doesn't hurt that much. He reached the bottom layer of the wrapping. She hissed again as he tugged her skin up with the bandage. Deckard stood and then returned to the table a moment later with a bowl of warm water. He wet the bandage before gently massaging it off. It looked worse now. The skin was brown and flaky with dried blood, and the scrapes looked red around the edges. Deckard put some alcohol on a cloth and cleaned her knuckles. It hurt, but the pain felt like a benediction. Kazunoha, what did you do? She tried to meet his eyes, but couldn't do it. I punched a wall. He laid a hand on hers. Why would you do that? Would she ever get a better opening than that? Angry. Talbot is withholding my items. Why would he do that? Deckard didn't seem to be paying attention to her anymore. He thinks you're very wise, Kazunoha said, instead of answering him. I don't see how those two things are related. He sounded confused. She risked a glance. You told him you don't approve of my plans. Deckard shifted. Now he was paying attention. I don't. I made that clear. I may have healed Richard, but even I can't deny he's shady. He placed his cards close to his chest, and managed to kill 4 men while drunk in the dark. I don't like the idea of anyone getting involved with a man like that. Regardless, I don't see why we're even talking about this. Because you and my sister have convinced Talbot that I'll be murdered if I leave town with him. Deckard said darkly, "You're leaving town with a man you don't know. Himiko worries." "You know how she is. I could be doing anything and she'd be against it because she didn't suggest it." He pushed away from the table. "So go. Talbot will sell you what you—" "No, he won't. That's what I came here for." "That isn't what worries me, though. What happens when Almeric says there's a problem with the weapons or the armor I purchased?" "What happens when Almeric says that there's a problem with the weapons or the armor I've purchased?" Have you thought for a moment that Himiko and I might be right? I can't stay here doing nothing for the rest of my life. So get a job with someone here in town." "With whom?" She threw up her hands. "I'm still a daughter of the Tanaka family. They won't let me work, not knowing who my father was. You remember what happened the last time." They were both standing. When did that happen? "Well, what am I supposed to do about it? You can't make your own decisions. You're still a child." "I'm an adult, Deckard. I make my own decisions. You make bad ones." It was a slap in the face. She slumped in her chair, and a moment later he followed suit. Neither would meet the other's eyes. "How am I supposed to prove that I'm capable of making good decisions if you and my sister won't even let me try?" Her tone was low and angry. "Is that what you think I'm doing?" he said, just as quietly. She didn't answer him. She didn't think she needed to. "Richard is still a bad influence," he said. It was enough. "Thank you," she said. Then she smiled, trying to lighten the mood. "We'll leave the interfering to Himiko from now on." He didn't smile. "I rather like Himiko, you know. She's got a good head on her shoulders." Her heart dropped into her stomach and she stood to leave. She's easy to like. "Okay, just let me put the book away." "Perfect!" Oh, I have to admit that for me, this is another one of my favorite chapters. Oh, it's part of the book where I always end up feeling entranced and wishing it wouldn't end. Yes, I realize I'm very biased, and I am fully willing to admit that. But they say you should write the book you want to read, and I completely did. I'd say the most disappointing part about being a writer for me is realizing that if I want any more of the story I'm putting together, I actually have to sit down and write it. Anyways, that's going to be it for me this week. Take care of yourselves, and come by the stream later tonight if you have time. I'm hoping it'll be a nice, relaxing step away from all the work that I put together for this weekend. And I hope I'll see all of you there. All right? Bye!